those of you who haven't, thank you for showing up. I know that today will be interesting. We have an incredible panel of experts here to talk to us about the defense industry in and around Newport. So welcome, panelists. I'm going to read their really impressive bios, so give me a few moments. Before I do that, I just want to remind you that the restrooms are down the hall. Please feel free to grab a cold beer or water or some snacks. I think that's all. Over here we have Molly Donahue McGee. She is the Executive Director of the Southeastern New England Defense Industry Alliance and Undersea Technology Innovation Consortium. Prior to these positions, she completed a 30-year civilian career in the government, where her last assignment was as the Chief Financial Officer for the Naval Undersea Warfare Center in Newport. Molly is also on the board here at Innovate Newport. Welcome, Molly. Thank you. Dr. Vic Ritchie is Chief Technology Officer at the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, Newark, headquarters. Dr. Ritchie is the Senior Advisor for Undersea Science and Technology for the NAVSEA Warfare Centers, Commander and Executive Director. For 5 years leading up to the current position, Dr. Ritchie concurrently served as CTO at the Newark headquarters and Division Newport. Prior to his role as CTO, Dr. Ritchie was the Director of S&T for the Sensor and Sonar Systems Department at Newark Division Newport. He also served as the Technical Manager for the Spartan Scout Advanced Concept Technology Demonstration, which provided unmanned surface vehicles with operational mission capabilities to the warfighter. He started his career and served in numerous leadership roles in Newark Tomahawk Test and Evaluation Program. Dr. Ritchie holds BS in Aerospace Engineering from Syracuse University and an MS and PhD in Mechanical Engineering and Applied Mechanics from the University of Rhode Island. Dr. Ritchie was the recipient of the NDIA Martel Bushnell Award, the OSD's ACTD Manager of the Year Award, and the Navy Meritorious Civilian Service Award. I hope I got all that right. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Jason Gomez, Chief Technology Officer at Newark Division Newport, and is responsible for technology research and development across all of Newark. The CTO also fosters collaborative research with academia and other government labs, as well as STEM outreach to the community. Dr. Gomez graduated from Syracuse University with a BS in Aerospace Engineering in 1992. In that same year, he started working at Newark Division Newport in the Weapons Development Department. He continued his education while working and was able to complete both a master's and PhD in mechanical engineering from URI. Throughout his 29-year career, Dr. Gomez has worked to advance all areas of technology associated with underwater weapons, including acoustics, drag reduction, power and energy, propulsion, and control. He has authorized multiple journal articles, has 4 patents, and was awarded the Navy Meritorious Civilian Service Award and the NDIA Bronze Medal. Dr. Gomez resides in East Greenwich with his wife and 2 daughters. Last but not least, we have Dave Lucier, President of C Corp. C Corp is in Middletown, Rhode Island, and is a Navy contractor serving Newark and other customers. They have more than 450 personnel and $100 million a year in revenue. They are an integral part of the local defense contractor community and partner with many local companies on various contracts. Their primary expertise is in the area of systems engineering on Navy submarine subsystems. Hope I got all that right. It's a lot of big words, but really thank you all so much for being here. As you know, we are having these sessions to get a better understanding of the different sectors of the blue economy. So today we're talking about the defense sector and all that we have going on around us, which is really exciting. And you know, I personally have been intrigued to learn how much is happening and where we're going with this. So I'm going to turn it over to Molly, who's going to start. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Molly. Two Mollys in the room. A little confusing, but we spell it differently, so you won't get confused. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you coming to hear about the defense cluster in Rhode Island, and more specifically what's going on Aquidneck Island. So I'm going to take you through an overview of what is the defense cluster, what do we do? And I'd like to start off by saying the Rhode Island Defense Cluster really is the hub for submarine shipbuilding and undersea technology. Certainly submarine shipbuilding with Electric Boat, which has the largest contract the Navy has ever awarded, and undersea technology, I'll give you highlights of why we really are the center of excellence for that, largely due to the Naval Undersea Warfare Center Division Newport. So a lot of words on here, and I did it more for this being a resource going forward, but when we talk about the defense cluster, certainly the Naval Undersea Warfare Center Division Newport is the big guy. They have over 3,500 civilian government employees, and then they're supported by another 2,600 industry folks like Seacorp that support them in their work. You also have the Naval Station Newport, which is a training command. It has over 30 educational training and programs on it, including the Naval War College, the Surface Warfare Officer School, Officer Candidate School, and over 17,000 students annually transition through Naval Station Newport. So again, a big economic generator for the local economy. Always need to mention our National Guard, as I call them, our home team, the Army and Air Force with over 3,000 guardmen and guardwomen. And then the defense industry partners, such as Electric Boat, Raytheon Technologies, Seacorp, and many other companies. The cluster as a whole has a $4.3 billion annual economic impact in the state of Rhode Island. It is the highest wage sector in the state of Rhode Island, with average salaries, depending on whether you're in government or industry and the type of work you do, between $70,000 and $100,000, and that's the average salary. And of particular note is during this pandemic environment that we've been through for the past year plus, the defense cluster's been growing. It never stopped. It never shut down, and more work kept coming in. So strategically, it's important, it's innovative, it's high-tech, it has high-paying jobs, and it's really resilient to economic downturns. So I'm the executive director of the Southeastern New England Defense Industry Alliance. We are an alliance of small and large businesses who support the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. We are a regional entity, so Southeastern New England. We are hubbed in Middletown. The largest portion of our members come from Rhode Island, but certainly Massachusetts, Connecticut. And we even have companies from outside the area who join, who are interested in coming and being able to work with Newark as a potential future contractor. I've just put a couple of the companies up here. We have the big primes, the companies that make things like Raytheon Technology, Electric Boat. We have other big companies such as Seacorp that do a significant amount of work and also make things that support the systems. And we have a lot of small to medium-sized companies. The largest part of my membership is small companies, small technology companies. We think of ourselves as a catalyst for thought leadership and technical innovation, and the real thrusts are obviously undersea technology, cybersecurity, because everything is cybersecurity, and other critical defense technologies. We as an alliance do two things. We do economic development and we do workforce development. The economic development is focused on how do we sustain and grow the defense industry base. And workforce development is how do we build the pipeline for workers today and tomorrow. And I'll tell you just a bit about what we do. From an economic development perspective, our member companies oftentimes call themselves competimates. Sometimes they're competitors, sometimes they're teammates. Dave can attest to this. If you're going to do business with Newark, with the Department of Defense, you're usually going to partner. You're going to put together a team of companies that can best meet the need of the government. So sometimes you'll be a teammate, and other times you'll be competing against each other. And it's that dynamic that keeps the companies involved in Synidia, because at the highest level, we can do a lot of things. We can do technical information sharing. We do workshops on how do you do business with the government. We do informational emails. We do networking opportunities. We do a lot of tech talks. We do them once a month, and we have transitioned to the virtual environment. So, in fact, that's probably good because we've got more people who can come. But for instance, Vic Ritchie has come to one of our tech talks and sort of talked about, as Newark looks out, what are their technical needs? What do they see coming? So industry can get a sense of where should I maybe invest my internal research dollars to position myself. And then the major thing we do networking is our Defense Innovation Days. And I'll tell you a bit, we canceled it last year. We are doing it virtually this year, but I have signed the contract with the Marriott in Newport. We will do it next year in person. We have been doing this since 2014. It has become a national event. It has wide recognition throughout DoD. We get senior DoD leaders. The picture's there. On the left is Vice Admiral Nancy Norton, who just recently retired, but she was the head of networks and information systems for DoD, Department of Navy. On the right, you see Senator Jack Reed, obviously very important as now the chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, which is, for us to have that position is unbelievable. He's welcoming then Secretary of Defense Mark Esper. And in fact, we were able to get Secretary Esper for his first speaking engagement after he was confirmed in the role. So we really call what happens during Defense Innovation Days Defense Innovation Week. The first 3 days are focused on what I call thought leadership, bringing in the leaders from defense, government, industry, Congress to talk about, what their needs are, having industry share. And then the last part of the week, we've been able to partner in the past with Newark Division Newport for their Advanced Naval Technology exercise. So there you're able to see real demonstrations of prototypes that are meeting the needs today and tomorrow for what the Department of Navy needs. From a workforce development, we are very focused on building the workforce today and tomorrow for the defense cluster. We have a very strong internship program that has been going on for a number of years. Thanks to Real Jobs Rhode Island, we're able to continue it, but I've got to thank the Van Burens because we started out our programs through support from you, and thank you very much. It got us kicked off. The program it started out in cybersecurity and information technology. We've now gone to undersea technology, being all the engineering and science degrees. Special focus on veterans. We really appreciate all they've done and want to make sure that we can bring them into the defense cluster if we can. And then supply chain and business management. We have done over 200 interns, and well over 90% of those interns have been placed in jobs, mostly within the Rhode Island Defense Cluster, but we also support the state of Rhode Island, and we've supported, and on the cyber side, some other businesses. The other thing we do for education outreach is a little more, how do we reach out and really start to build that pipeline? How do we get into high schools, and quite truthfully, even middle schools, and tell the students about the great careers? If you're a student and you have not known anybody who works at Newark, and we go in and ask you, so what do you think about a job working for defense? Their first thought is, well, I'd have to join the Army or the Navy. And we say, boy, that's a really great thing to do, but do you know, if you don't want to do that, do you know you can be a civilian? You can work in technology, you could work building systems, and you can stay right here in Rhode Island. So we like to get that word out. Of note, many of you may know that there's a P-TECH school here in Newport that's focused on cybersecurity, and that's the program where the CTE partners with CCRI and an industry partnership to be able to say to students, you enter in your freshman year and you're guaranteed over the next 6 years or less to get your high school degree and your associate's degree. And oh, by the way, you're going to have industry there with you. You'll have mentors. You'll have people showing you what these careers really look at. Really outstanding program. I can tell you that we've now had 2 students that have graduated in 4 years with a high school degree and an associate's degree, and many that had just gone a little bit beyond that. So a powerful program. The other thing we do with the local colleges and universities is we want to make sure we always keep a conversation going between industry, DoD, and the academic folks to let them know what technology, what needs for workforce are coming down the pike. So we do this annually. So again, they'll see, maybe how they have to tweak a program or whatever to support. Again, all focused on building and sustaining our national workforce. This past year during COVID, we even got more work put on us. Other people, didn't, and that really breaks my heart in some cases, but we were awarded an $18 million contract a year ago, August. It's for submarine shipbuilding workforce development. So our internship programs are really focused on the STEM careers. This took a different tact. If you look at Electric Boat, which is going to be building 3 submarines a year, so it's them and their supply chain, there is a huge need for trade and industrial skilled workers. And so our charge was help set up the training within Rhode Island and Connecticut and Massachusetts to make sure we've got the training ability, and then get the word out about how great these jobs are. It's great to have a STEM career. It's also great to be one of these folks that's working on building the submarines. So we're moving ahead. In fact, we now have been asked to expand into all of New England, and we're developing a model that we can then give to other states, so that the need for trade and industrial skill workers is huge. It's not just shipbuilding, it goes for a lot of other things. So it's really a national campaign that DOD is willing to fund, because as we've strengthened the pipeline as a whole, we strengthen everybody. So that's been a lot of things. A key note is students who will be entering 4th grade in September will be the workforce for Electric Boat at their peak demand of work. So that just shows you the longevity of what's going on here. If anybody's interested in more information on this, we have built out a website called buildsubmarines.com. It has a lot of neat information about this, and it shows some of the stuff we're doing to support this effort. And I'd like to just talk a couple of minutes on the Undersea Technology Innovation Consortium. When we looked at CNIDIA and we looked at our members, undersea technology is a huge thrust for many, many of them. And we said, you know what, we really should develop a 501c3 research organization that can really focus on that. And what we want to do is, we're looking at how can we help companies take their technology, prototype it, and get it to market. How can we share with them the needs so they know how they can modify their technology to make it be able to meet both defense and commercial needs. In 2018, we were awarded a special DoD contract called an Other Transaction Agreement from the Naval Undersea Warfare Center Division Newport. Basically, it establishes what we call an enterprise partnership. So we have the government, we have this consortium of technology providers, whether it's companies or academic organizations or nonprofits, and working together to, again, help come up with prototypes that can solve Navy needs. We're hubbed here in Middletown. Well, this is Newport, but we're hubbed here on Aquidneck Island. But we are a national organization. I have over 300 member companies from 37 states. Of importance, the companies we are reaching out to is what are called the non-traditional contractors, where they may have never worked for the Department of Defense before, or they're a small business that have just done a little bit. As I say to folks, if you haven't worked for the Department of Defense through a contracting procurement arrangement, it's not for the faint of heart. And again, there's a reason for that. Bureaucracy does have its reason, but you need help to help those companies be able to get in and be able to support. So far, there have been over 100 prototype projects awarded at a value of over $300 million. So it's been pretty successful. We're in our 4th year, and we have 10 years total to go on it, so it's longevity. I'm not going to go through this, but this is all the type of areas that we can provide support on. And the bio-inspired sensor, there's a scientist from Newark, Sally Sutherland, and she's done videos for us to go into classrooms, and she tells the story so well, I'm not going to do it justice. But she says, think of a mama seal who's blind. Do you know she still can tell where all her pups are, all her babies are, and it's through her whiskers. They have sensor capability. And wouldn't it be nice to understand how does that work, so maybe we can use that technology some other way. So cool stuff like that. But again, lots of things that can happen under our agreement. And then I'm just going to end with this. Whether it's CNIDIA, whether it's UTIC, you know, we look at innovation and workforce development really is a partnership, it's a collaboration. No one can do it on their own. And it starts off by making sure we communicate, we talk to each other, we say what our needs are, what we can do. We collaborate, we work together and help everybody rise. We innovate, and then we demonstrate that it works, and if we've got to make changes, do it. Again, a partnership, no one entity can do it. It's government, industry, academia. And as I like to say, it's all laser focused on, can we come up with innovative, cyber-secure technology and workforce development programs that support DoD needs, and really, they support other needs. So I'm now going to turn it over to Vic. And I'm going to hand you this.
Thank you, Molly. That was really great, actually. So many of the points that you make really feed into the things that I'm going to touch on. And it really just starts to talk about how we're all integrated and work together. So I'm here, I'm the I'm the headquarters Chief Technology Officer for NUIC. And I'm co-located in Newport with the Division Newport, and Dr. Gomez here is our Chief Technology Officer for the Division Newport. And we're gonna talk a little bit about both roles and both responsibilities. I'll start off, Division Newport, NUIC is one that has two laboratories. It's really a full spectrum undersea warfare, research, development, test and evaluation, engineering, in-service support for the Navy, actually for the nation. I mean, we're doing it for the nation, actually. We have 8 sister laboratories on the surface side, and together we make up the NAVSEA Warfare Centers. And NAVSEA is by far the largest system command, purchases all the ships, not only for the Navy, but also for the Army. By the way, the Army has more ships than the Navy, and the Navy has more airplanes than the Air Force, but who's counting? So, but that's, we make up a tremendous strength, and I'll show you in the next couple slides what that really makes up. Moving on, you'll see here a map, a demographic here, some of the numbers and such, but there's 10 warfare centers up under the star in where Rhode Island is. That's HQ for NUIC, and that's also the Division Newport. And then in the upper left in Seattle, Washington is our sister division in Keyport. So I have responsibility over those two organizations from a headquarters perspective. Jason and his counterpart then really do the operations at those divisions, and that's really important. I show you the other 8 divisions because really there's tremendous capability that we draw on. Folks from other divisions like Carderock or Panama City also have equities in the undersea, in the ocean environment that we want to tap into. And this also starts to show you sort of the national picture that Molly spoke about. Newport truly is the center, the hub, the center of gravity for all undersea activity in the Navy. And if we're not part of it, we're probably really close to it. So I think that's a very, very important part. And I always get the question, you know, oh, Rhode Island, that's part of Massachusetts, right? Because you can't even see it on the map. But some of the points, we have about 28,000 employees, 20,000 of which are scientists and engineers. That's a third of the Navy's scientists and engineers. So that is a substantial capability. Molly pointed out there's a substantial contractor force. Well, across NAVSEA, the Warfare Centers, there's about 20,000 contractors beyond that. So there's a tremendous workforce that's at the ready and working on our problems. Additionally, we have, let's see, I can almost read that. Oh yeah, I got it. It's, the other number that I'm really proud of on this slide, and there's a lot of numbers on this slide, but there's 858 PhDs across our enterprise. The Naval Research Laboratory, which is the premier naval research facility for the Navy, has about 800 to 900 PhDs. Now that's a much higher percentage of their workforce, but it just shows that we have that type of capability to be able to translate tough technical problems to warfighting problems. And that's really one of the key pieces we really work on. And if you add to that another 6,500 employees that have master's degrees, you can really see we have a highly technical workforce. And that's the workforce that Jason works with day to day within the divisions. The things that we work on. Now this is a surface ship. I'll actually point out just a few things on this and then move to the submarine. But our laboratories across all our divisions and warfare centers work on pretty much everything that's pointed out there, including the shape and design of the hull, and all the mechanicals. In Newport, we focus on the sonar systems, torpedoes, torpedo launchers, and just a few other ancillary type things on surface ships. The real bread and butter is the submarine, and as Molly pointed out, you have Electric Boat nearby, Raytheon. You have so many prime vendors, but also the huge supporting vendors like C Corp that are local and really work on pretty much every system that you see on this diagram. And across all the warfare centers, we pretty much work on or have something to do with every system there. The only thing we actually don't work on is the nuclear propulsion. That's done by a completely different, separate entity in partnership with the Department of Energy. So Molly showed her focus areas for UTIC. And so when you work on certain things, you need to focus, otherwise you get too diluted. We start with our National Defense Strategy that came out in 2018, and in there you'll find things like AI and hypersonics. Then we also have our CNO's navigation plan. And then beyond that, NAVSEA has the real emphasis to, they say the force behind the fleet. It's really about getting ships delivered on time and working with the shipyards and building ships, Electric Boat, or even the public shipyards. But throughout that, there's a lot of guidance and a lot of information from a technical perspective. And so what we've done is we've developed these knowledge points, and these knowledge points map very closely to a lot of the things that Molly spoke about as focus areas that we look at. Well, that's derived directly from all the national guidance. And you'll see things in there like ocean sciences. Well, that seal whisker work fits right into that, and things like that. You'll find a lot of sub areas to these knowledge points, and these are the areas where we're focusing. AI, machine learning, clearly, autonomy, clearly, cybersecurity, and you can just go down that list and see a lot of highly important areas, including sustainment and repair, because we have to remember that we have to be able to take care of our platforms in the shipyards and make sure that they're out at sea when we need them there. And then we can't do it alone. So our ecosystem, Molly really did a great job talking to our ecosystem, the DoD laboratories, other government. Our partnership intermediaries, Newport has a PO with Innovate Newport and with Sinea, as a matter of fact. And then clearly industry. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road. These are the individuals that are actually building the systems that we have to work to integrate together.
DoD laboratories, other government.
And so some of the ways that we do that, and
Our partnership
Molly
intermediaries,
talked
Newport
about
has
the
a
left corner there, the
PO with
OTA, other transactions authorities, contracts, SIBRs,
and then
things like that. These are all
clearly
partnership
that's
mechanisms
where the
by
rubber
which we
meets
can get
the road. These are
funding
the
out to
individuals who are
industry
building
or
the system
academia.
that we have
One
to
of our
work to
key
integrate
elements, though, is the
together.
CRADA. The PIA is listed,
So
but the
some of the
CRADA
ways
is
that
the
we
Cooperative
do that,
Research and Development
Molly
Agreement.
talked in the upper left
We
corner
work
there, the
very
OTA,
closely with
other
industry
transactions authorities,
and
contracts,
academia
SIBRs,
and others.
things like that.
under
These are all
Cooperative
partnership
Research and
mechanisms
Development
by which we
Agreements,
can get funding out to
where they can
industry
invest
and
their
academia.
IRAD and we can invest
One of
our
our
UC
key
Dice
elements,
and
though, is the
ASC,
CRADA.
that's how to
The
misspell
PIA
it.
is listed.
Naval
The CRADA,
Innovation and
Cooperative
Science
Research
and
and
Engineering.
Development Agreement.
And what that really is our
We work very closely with industry.
the IRAD that Newport has, that our other sister divisions have, and we work on hard problems that
Where
you
they
see.
can invest their IRAD and we can invest our UC Dice.
So these are ways that we engage, working with our partners, working with innovation hubs.
What that really
like
is our
Newport, like TechBridge,
The IRAD
and
that
a lot of
Newport
other ways
has,
to
that
get
our
the
other
word
sister
out.
divisions
Let
have,
people know.
and
Molly
we
said
work on hard
she
problems
invited
that
me
you
a
see
couple years
in
ago to
that
a tech
knowledge
talk.
point list.
Well, I talked
So
about
these
it
are
more
ways
in
that we
depth about
engage,
what it is
with
that
our
we need
partners,
and
working with
part of it
innovation hubs
autonomy.
like Innovate
It's a big
Newport,
topic,
like
and how do we
TechBridge,
translate that down
and a lot of
so
other
people
ways
can take
to
action?
get the word out, to let
So
people know.
I think
Molly
that
said
was my last
she invited me a couple
slide,
years ago to
and
do a
I
tech
will
talk.
turn- I
Well,
just hit the wave
talked
tops,
about it
and
more in depth
we
about
can talk more,
what
but I'm
it
gonna
is
turn
that
over
we
to
need.
Jason, I'll give you a little bit
What
more
part of it,
drill
autonomy?
down on
It's a big
division.
topic, and how do we translate that down so people can take
Sure,
action?
we got a question.
So
Having said a word,
That was my last slide, and I just hit the wave top, so we can talk more. I'm gonna turn over to Jason to give you a little bit more drill down on division. Thank you.
sure, we got a question. Having said a word,
Sorry. I'm a little late to the party. My name is Angela McCalla. I'm one of the New York City councilors.
I don't have them listed, but I'll mention someone I get
And
there.
I just had a
Yeah,
question.
Is that
You
okay?
talked about academia.
You're doing a great job.
Academic
Yeah,
partnerships.
I'll try to talk a little bit more in detail now that you're. I don't have them listed, but I'll mention someone about the local academics.
Oh, okay, so I'm already
In
ahead.
fact,
You're doing a great job.
we can
Yeah,
delve into that even a little
I'll try to
deeper,
talk a
the
little bit
mechanisms we
more
can
in
actually
detail
use.
now that you're interested in it. Yep. So I just wanted to put this title slide up there to let everybody know, Ron. So Jason Gomez, the CTO at Newark Newport here. And there's one with me at each one of those 10 warfare centers that
So I just wanted to
Nick talked about. And we
Put this title slide up there to let everybody know, Ron. So Jason Gomez, the CTO at Newark Newport here.
They all have
Me
different
at each one of those 10 warfare centers
but
that
Newark
we talked
Newport
about.
is the one you probably are
Work
most
very
familiar with.
closely in connection with each other.
Ron Dean is our
So we
technical
do have
director and
reach
Kate
out into all of them. They all have different specialties and things. But Newark Newport is the one you probably are most familiar with. Ron Dean is our technical
So
director.
this slide shows, and I'll try to go quickly through these because there's a lot of information on them, but we're organized into 7 technical departments, and they each have their
So
own.
this slide shows, and I'll try to go quickly through these because there's a lot of information on it, but
Talked
we're
about the
organized
parts of the
into
ship.
7 technical
We
departments.
get
and
funding
each have their
from our
own,
Navy sponsors in Washington DC
and
based on those
talked
systems, and
about
so
the
our
parts of the
departments
ship.
are organized across
funding
those
from
systems.
our
But
Navy
across
sponsors
all
in
those
Washington
systems,
DC,
like the sonar
based on
systems
those systems,
on
and
the
so our
surface ships and
departments
submarines,
are
the weapon
organized
systems,
across those
the
systems. But
UUVs,
across all
the
those systems, like the sonar
periscopes and
systems
antennas,
on the surface ships and submarines,
they
the weapon systems
all,
and UUVs,
we work on,
the
and
periscopes
I don't know if it was
and
Molly or Vic, but talked about full spectrum.
they
And so full
all
spectrum really means, and we draw it across the Newport Bridge,
I
that
don't know if it was
involve
Molly or Vic,
the
but talked
science
about
and
full spectrum.
technology, the
So
basic
full
research,
spectrum
the
really
scientists
means, and we
working
draw
with
across the
academia,
Newport Bridge down the bottom,
trying to
the
come
science
up
and
with a certain
technology, the
concept
basic
as we move
research, the
across the
scientists
bridge,
working with
and we
academia,
apply that research to a
trying to
concept.
come up
We
with a
might
certain
need a
concept, and as we move
prototype
across the
build
bridge,
and
we
one in
apply that
water, so
research to a
maybe we
concept.
reach
We
out
might
to
need
the
a
OTA
prototype
or the
build,
UTIC to try to
and
get,
one in
you know,
water,
we
so
build a lot of
maybe
stuff
we reach
ourselves,
out
we
to the
can't do it all.
OTA
So
and the
if
UTIC
we
to try to
do
get,
know
we build a lot of stuff ourselves, but we can't do it
an
all.
industry
So
partner that's
maybe we
working on
do
something similar,
know,
we'll try to get them to help us build a
an
prototype
industry partner
to
that's
develop
working
that
on something
concept a
similar,
little
we're trying to
further.
get them to help
If we
us
go
build
across
a
the
prototype
bridge,
to develop
Newport
that
also
concept a
works
little
with,
further.
and
If
actually
you go
most
across
of
the
our
bridge,
workforce,
Newport
that left
also
side of the
works
bridge
with,
is
and
probably
actually most of
10%
our
of our
workforce,
workforce.
that left side of the bridge is
About 10%
probably
of it.
10%
As
of
we
our
move across
workforce.
the bridge, the
Yeah, about
programs
10% of our
shrink in numbers,
As
but
we move
grow
across
in
the bridge,
size.
programs
And we
shrink
start
in numbers,
actually
but
getting
grow
the
in
funding
size.
coming from
And
the
we start
program
actually getting
offices
the
for
funding
the
coming
major
from the
systems.
program
And we work with
offices
those
for
program
the major
offices to
systems.
help
And we
the
work with those
acquisition
program
process,
offices
make
to
sure
help
that
the
their
acquisition
development
process, make
this
sure that their
timeline is much
development
longer, and
This
we're talking
timeline
about
is much
the
longer, and
heavyweight
we're talking
torpedo
about,
program,
the heavyweight
the
torpedo
lightweight
program,
torpedo program,
or the lightweight torpedo program,
big
or the
wider,
big
wide search array or the towed array
search
systems.
array or the towed array
These are big
systems.
systems that
These
are
are
on
big
submarines,
systems that
but
are
we
on
have our
submarines, but we
engineers,
have our
and
engineers,
when we get to the numbers,
we get to
Molly
the
showed
numbers,
some,
Molly showed some,
our
our
engineers
engineers
are
are
working with
working with
industry partners that
support all
support
of
what we do
day to day on the base.
but we're working with the program offices in Washington DC with the prime contractors to make sure those systems are actually performing the way we want them to perform, and that we're meeting them at a time. Then we get to the very far right side of the bridge, which is the fleet support. So we have folks that we fly every day out to every part of the world to make sure that the system is working, and so that boat can get out and do what it needs to do. And we did that all the way through COVID. We were making decisions here where we'd send an engineer to Japan, and they had to quarantine for 2 weeks here before they went. They had to quarantine 2 weeks. When they got there, they would work for 1 day, come back and quarantine for another couple of days, so, a couple of weeks. So we were eating up for 1 day of work to make sure that boat left. We were eating up a couple of months of these people's lives. And do that every day. So we do support that entire spectrum. As you know, Vic said, we have our sister lab support on the West Coast. They work more on the right side of the bridge, the acquisition fleet support side. We work more across the whole bridge, but our responsibilities kind of tail off the fleet support, and there's tail off. We work very closely with that. I also sit underneath the Foundation Chief Technology Office. And so we try to look across all the departments and people we work on. And so I like to show this piece because all our science and technologists that work on that left side of the bridge are interspersed throughout these departments. And they're working on these systems day to day. And I think Vic mentioned it. That is an important time when we have someone working with the sailors and the fleet, working with the acquisition systems, and that knowledge flows back to our scientists that's working in the lab, and now they understand that problem. And that communication piece to go back and forth. Sometimes the scientists don't talk to the engineers, they don't talk to the sailors, they can't communicate together. So my office really tries to make that communication happen, work. just wanted to give an idea of the scope of Newport's customers, and let everybody know we're not a funding source. Newport is a neighborhood capital fund, so we get money in from our sponsors at DC. It's a lot of money. About 1.3 billion comes through Newport. About half that goes to support our workforce. As Molly said, I think there might be a slide on the workforce, but about 3,500 government folks. So that's just for our government folks. Another big chunk of that goes to our contractor support folks. And we've had people working on the base every day in their entire careers with different color badge and no benefits. And that really makes up our entire workforce. And we don't have to harp on it. It's a big workforce. We have a lot of capability, and we really do put a lot of emphasis on growing that educational base in there. I'll get to the universities in a second. But I just gave a talk today for all the internal folks that are in our academic program. So when you show up, and I did this, and Vic did this, both of us came on circuits. But we show up here at Capital School at a local university where we're at. And we pay for this, we pay for classes, because we need our workforce to continue to grow. We have a great program, we send them to school full-time for a year, so they can work on an advanced degree. And it's just really important. And those local universities are, should I say it here? I'm trying to think if I have it on later, but URI is our largest provider of workforce. And I just did the numbers and I forget, but it's by far, we get all of our graduates, we get the biggest percentage of our workforce from URI. UMass Dartmouth is second. Wisconsin Tech is another one that get DC out of. So it's all local universities, because people know about it. All those universities are the ones that also provide our education afterwards too, because they're good universities, really good researchers, and they collaborate with a lot, so we build that relationship, and it's convenient for people as they build their lives. Go ahead.
So here in Newport, so it sounds like there's some ways you talk a lot about workforce, and making sure that there are entryways and pathways. And here in Newport, we have Salve Regina University, we have Roger Williams University as well. But then also, what about the community colleges that are also I've been doing a lot of research, and it seems like in terms of economic development, it seems like these community colleges seem to be the critical turning point for those trying to access careers or gain some type of skill or job. And so much so that our former governor, Mondo, had also waived tuition to ensure that Rhode Island residents have access to further their education. So I would ask you all, is there a current partnership with CCRI, or are you thinking?
Not for Newport. Can I get educational partnerships a little bit? I'm almost at educational partnerships.
Oh, okay, so I keep going ahead of schedule.
You're keeping me going. That's good. I just want to throw these up there because they align well with the areas that Molly showed, that Vic showed. These are our 10 technology focus areas. And we do this, and we talk about the different departments, and there are S&T lies across those systems. Sometimes those scientists and engineers get isolated. They might be a couple scientists working in a department of 100 people working on a system. So we put these together to give our technical folks, our really high-end researchers, areas to focus on. And I won't go into details on all these, but they match up identically to all the other areas. And all these grew out of the evolution of Newport over the past 150 years, merging with the Sound Lab in London, and then all the enabling capabilities around it. And just to point that out, and I have a whole talk, which I won't get to because we're going to get education partnerships, about how we get down to the bottom. And the bottom two, cybersecurity and machine learning, 10 years ago we went on here. We didn't even know about cybersecurity back then, and machine learning was just coming around and it wasn't very good. Now they're up there, they're prime things that we're trying to grow up there. I might be on partnerships. All right. So how do we partner with folks? I'll start with educational partnerships. So we have about almost 40 educational partnerships with places around the country, mostly focused here in the local area. They are not all universities, about 20, I forget the numbers, about 26 or so universities. And some are with elementary schools, some are with anybody that has some kind of STEM education program we can partner with. Candy Tijara runs our STEM outreach program. And the number she has counted numerous times is about 5,000 students a year that we touch somehow. Through putting someone in a classroom, Newport has a ton of them. I know we have some partnerships with some local Newport elementary schools and things. I can get you the exact names of them. I don't know off the top of my head. I do not think we have a partnership with any of the community colleges. We try to get the kids early to get them into universities, and we're hiring engineering students, a lot of bachelor's degrees, masters, PhDs. That is our prime workforce just because of the work that we do. I would think.
I'll just jump in.
Yeah.
From an industry perspective, we go broader, and so I'm with the Southeastern New England Defense Industry Alliance. We have a very close partnership with the Community College of Rhode Island. I like to tell people that is a premier cybersecurity program. Students coming out of that 2-year program are getting jobs with salaries of 50, 60 plus. So we work with them. CCRI also has a cyber range. We're one of the active partners. And we had talked about the PTech cybersecurity program. So from an industry perspective, which has a broader reach out of the type of jobs we need, there's broader reach out, even including industrial and trade skills supporting submarine shipbuilding.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this, because that's an area where we are looking at certain levels, not bachelor's degree, because that is such a highly sought after skill. So even certificate programs are getting you kind of in the door to work on certain things and still grow and through some of the education programs. So there may not be a formal partnership with CCRI, but I can tell you I know a number of people who are actually going and getting certificate programs at CCRI and things like that. We did have, or Newport, I say we, I keep thinking, I'm you, but I'm not. But it's, we did have, Newport did have a partnership with Bristol Community College actually at one time for pathways and things like that.
And we do have a partnership with Roger Williams, an education partnership with them. Salve, I'm not sure if we do. I think we did in the past. It may have lapsed. They last for so many years, and sometimes the folks who are working on it don't know. But they come back around again when someone else gets interested. It really takes a professor there, a researcher in our place to have some mutual interest, and then they try to work together. Again, we don't pass money for our educational partnerships at all, but they've been great. NIET has been wonderful as an entity with UConn, URI, and Electrico, and we're part of their board, and we team our researchers up with them, and we get actually some level of matching funding so that we can make that partnership fruitful. To go to industry, so as Nick mentioned, CRADA's cooperative research agreements, those are all run through my office. We have, the number fluctuates, it's always about 70, it's 65 and 70, and again, those we have some with educational entities, but mostly with industry, mostly with small industry in the area. We do have with Raytheon and other folks, because we want to influence their IRAD, and we want them to influence ours also. So that is a prime way that we can work together. And again, it's used to protect intellectual data rights on both sides, but also give access to data that we may have. Give access to our equipment or our facilities that you may need for different things. So that is a good way to do that. We have a few peers as with Sedalia, local tech bridge, with Peer, with Polaris. I think we have 5 peers total, one in the state of Rhode Island, with Innovate Newport. There's one I'm forgetting. That's another way that we can interface with local industry. Yes, sir.
Do you fund your employees going back to college doing master's degrees and PhDs?
We do. that's how Vic and I became so smart. Yeah, that's one of the fine ways that the folks, we definitely target hiring master's and PhD students right out of special, certain schools. But we encourage our employees to go back, and again, I was just giving a talk today, trying to encourage the folks that are in our program, just going through and getting classes, to join one of our programs. It's called our fellowship program, and we'll pay their full salary, pay their tuition, and we send them off to school for a year. And we target folks that are at a point in their master's or PhD program where they're almost at the end and just need something to get them over the edge. And if we give them that year of dedicated time away from work, it's very successful. So we do.
And do you have any sort of write-up handouts to describe that? I'm thinking now actually of my grandson discussing English last year at ULI as an engineer.
So that would be our internship program. So I'll, actually, if that's okay, I'll take a minute. So we hire, again, most of our folks out of the local universities. We bring in anywhere from 50 to 60 interns every year at Newick. It actually, the date's coming up, we use a program called NREAD, I forget what it stands for, but it's the Alternative Research, and there's a website. I can email you the website at some point, but URI is a big puller, a big place to pull from. But the students apply to that, we get their resumes, we look at it, we select about that many kids to come in each year and work with our engineers and scientists. Through the summer, our first group was just about to go back to school. We had another group that started, partway through the summer and stay, through August and then head back. We pay pretty good, I think we get paid, but it's a great experience. And we try to keep you for a couple of years, and that really is the place that we pull most of our, not most, because we've been hiring a little above attrition last year. I think we hired about 350 people. This year coming up, I think we're going to hire about 250. Our attrition is about 200. So we will we look to our interns because we work with them and we understand them, they understand us. We look to hire them first.
I've actually got a document I can send to you, Molly, if you want to post it for your folks, that has the links to these programs that Jason's talking about.
That'd be wonderful. And this presentation will be shared as well, and it's being recorded, so I will share that with everybody involved.
Civilians. At Newick Newport here, we have a captain, we have an XO. They're great. They cycle through every couple of years. I've lived through 10, 15 captains now. Some better than others, but usually all right. Our captain now, so that's wonderful. We probably have a handful of military people on our side. The most, we actually bring folks in, sailors in, so we can run them through our systems. They can give us feedback. So that's where most military people are, but it's also. No, I came out of college, Vic came out of college. I think I've had that.
All right, thanks, Jason. Hi, my name's Dave Lucier, president of C Corp. So I'm kind of representing an example contractor industry, performer here, supporting Newick and other customers. So there's well over 100 contractors that support Newick. And I'm just one of them to give you an example of the government versus industry side of what we do and how we integrate with the economy, et cetera. So just the basic roles, right? The government will specify the capabilities of a new system or something like that. So they'll create a document like a specification or a test plan and test procedures. Our company name will never be on those documents. Those are Newick documents. But they will hire us to perform services because we have expertise in creating the guts of those documents, and the government will review, the government will always approve those documents, but we help produce a lot of them. So we actually do a lot of the work to help Vic, as he was describing, and then they turn into government products, if you will. So that would be an example of the service type work a Newick contractor like C Corp would do for Newick. And we do it with people on site at Newick, we do it with people in our C Corp facilities, kind of a mixed bag. And then as far as an example of our size, so we're the largest contractor to Newick, actually, other than the contractor that runs the AUTEC, Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center in the Bahamas. So for local service providers to Newick, we're actually the largest one. As big as we are, we don't even get 10% of that $700 million that Jason was talking about, that Newick gives out. So they spread the money around to a lot of different companies. So as big as we are, we don't even get 10% of it. So right now we're about 470 employees. For the past 5 years, we've hired about 60 to 90 employees a year. And 90% of them are local to the Newport area. But we're a 40-year-old company, so over the course of our life, we've had about 1,500 employees, over time. We do about $100 million in revenue. About 10 million of that goes out to over 400 vendors. So we buy a lot of supplies, typical cables and machine parts and things like that. And some of them are local vendors, and most of them are actually small businesses. So we have goals and initiatives as a company to try to do more business with small businesses. So we have initiatives like that. We have very high-paying jobs, mostly electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and software engineers. We do have some administrative people. As Vic was saying, the cyber world is really booming. So a lot of those people don't necessarily have to have bachelor's degrees. There's different IA levels of certification you can get to become a cyber technician, ISSM, all these different roles in the cyber world. So that's probably where more of the community college educated folks can join the ranks of the contractor industry if they don't have full-fledged engineering degrees. Our average salary, I looked this morning, is about $100,000 even. So we have high-paying jobs in general. We have 4 facilities, and half of our workforce are in our facilities, and the other half are at the government facilities, or we have people at Raytheon, at Lockheed, at General Dynamics, at Electric Boat. So some of our people are located at the actual customer location, about half. And we have 1 facility in Groton, but the other 3 are right here in the Middletown Corporate Park. So as far as what we do, it's 2 basic things. We do services or products. So right now we're about 70% services. So the things I told you about earlier, supporting Newick and their mission, we provide the service of helping Newick do what they do. So that's called engineering services, technical services, administrative, financial, all different types of things, but mostly engineering.
Can I, so on that note, so we have our projects or programs cycle through, and a big one may be coming through. We line up a team of people, work on it, and we're like, we're X number of something short mechanical engineers, so reach out. And so that workforce ebbs and flows over time. We just can't do it with the folks we have, and we use the industry as accumulators to provide that workforce that we need at that moment for that chunk of time.
Yeah, so we often don't get leadership roles in a major program like that, but we're supporting roles, helping them. But quite often, testing submarines is something we do a lot of. So we'll help write the tests, write the procedures, create equipment to collect the data, ride the submarines, collect the data, come home, analyze it, write a report. I've been to the North Pole a couple of times as a Sea Corp employee, riding submarines over the years. Shot Tomahawk missiles, shot torpedoes, navigated through minefields, played cat and mouse, open ocean, sub on sub. So as a contractor, you get to do some fun things over time. I like riding submarines. I don't do it anymore. I think I was 44 or 45 years old on my last trip. I'm 60 now, but they call the skipper of the submarine is called the old man. And on that trip, I was the oldest guy in the boat. So that's time to stop, So, and then on the other side of the fence, like I said, about 30% of our company is actually producing products and prototypes. So like they said, they develop a lot of cutting-edge, high-tech, undersea technologies, and after they do some specifying or design work, it has to be prototyped. And sometimes it's going to be tested in water, sometimes it's just on a bench. But that prototyping process is something they often contract out. We love that kind of work. So we've been doing that for many years, at least 15 now. And over time, as we have produced some of these prototypes, it has led to production contracts. So now at Sea Corp, we have a production mezzanine. It's a big white space with 5 production lines. We're producing submarine antennas and some tactical equipment for the Blick 10 EW systems. That's like a electronic warfare system. Think of it as 9 refrigerator cabinets inside of a submarine. It's got all this high-tech, mil-spec electronics. But honestly, compared to 20 years ago, the Lockheeds and the Raytheons would make all these systems, and it was all stovepipe, individual, proprietary hardware. Now everybody's buying the most high-tech hardware you can put on a submarine, and the rest is software. So that's the big change in the past 10 years. So we have a lot of software engineering, we do a lot of software development, and a lot of these systems capabilities are enabled by new software, just like a Tesla or some modern cars where you get a software update and all of a sudden you got all these new capabilities. A lot like apps, you know, you get a submarine, oh, let's give them another app, you know. So that's a lot of what we do. And as an example, just in the past few months, we built a 10-foot Connex box. It's like a tractor-trailer box without wheels. So it's a very short, 8 by 8 by 10 feet, but it was packed with electronics that was classified, so it had to have all the security measures. And on top of it had radars and antennas. And we designed and built the whole thing right here in Middletown. It got shipped to San Diego. It got put onto an 80-foot unmanned surface vessel called the Sea Hunter. And this vessel was controlled remotely through a satellite, went offshore, did an offshore exercise with a bunch of naval ships with no people on it. And people from Newark and Seacorp were controlling this 10-foot box from a lab at Newark, right here in Newport, through satellites. And we collected some over-the-horizon target information on a ship. And then that targeting information was identified, classified, and tracked to the point where we had a firing solution. We sent it to a destroyer. Destroyer launched an SM-6 missile at a fake target. So we play in that arena where we can actually produce the hardware for a prototype test like that. It was a very successful exercise for the Navy and for Seacorp because we were engaged. But that's just an example of a project we might do with producing things. And then just a few other stray subjects kind of tying together with everybody here. So within Innovate Newport, I thought I'd just talk briefly about the SBIR program, Small Business Innovative Research. So we've been around a long time, and Seacorp has 20 topics in our history that we've actually performed on, which means we've received grant funding for a phase 1. We wrote a feasibility study on some new high-tech way or innovative way to solve a Navy problem. In some of those cases, we got beyond the $150K funding, and we got like $1 million for phase 2. We actually go produce a prototype, and if the customer likes your prototype and they want to keep on going, they might give you a phase 3, which is a sole source, indefinite quantity type contract to go further develop and maybe get into production of those technologies in a phase 3 type contract. The reason why I say all that is I'm not bragging about Seacorp. I'm trying to explain that if there are innovators and creative people in Newport or connected to this facility that have ideas of, boy, I wonder if the Navy could use that. I wonder if you can actually talk to a company like me, or actually preferably, I hate to say preferably, but we're 475 people. You have to have less than 500 employees to play in this arena, so we're about to become a tween and graduate, but there's hundreds of small companies Molly can hook you up with. The SBIR program is a nice entryway for innovators to get together with a small defense contractor and become part of that team, whether you're a consultant or an employee or whatever, and bid on a phase 1. You might not win, but once you win a phase 1, your prospects for a phase 2 are pretty good, and then who knows what it can lead to in a phase 3. Right now we have 4 phase 3 contracts, 4 different topics that we have 5 years large, $30, $45 million contracts that will run in perpetuity. So it's a very successful program for the DoD and for us, and a lot of little companies are taking advantage of it.
Can I add?
Yep.
So, Dr. Tony Roof from my office runs the SBIR efforts at Newark, and so we have, I can go talk from my side. We have about 150 specific ones going on, probably some of the ones you're working on, others are there. We help, they all come out of program offices. The topics get advertised, and I'm sure Ron will have a way to see those advertisements and help folks submit to them. And so when we help Newark, and we'll help the program offices define the topics that go into the advertisement, and then afterwards, when it comes back around and there are proposals that come in, we help with them. If it gets selected, we usually provide a point of contact through Dr. Roof that works with the company to help.
Yep.
So I'm glad you brought it up. It is a great way, and we'd like to too, because you guys
One quick other note on that. If you're a small Rhode Island company, 50 employees or less, so it doesn't apply to Seacorp, but you get in the SBIR world, the state of Rhode Island will give you a matching grant. If you win a phase 1 SBIR, they'll give you $45,000 on top of what you win. If you win a phase 2, they'll give you up to $150,000 on top of what you won. So again, it's a real, number one, it's a great way to write a proposal and say the state is supporting you, and it gives you a real push to be able to get your technology done. Yeah, if you go on Rhode Island Commerce is who runs it, and if you just go on there, Christine Smith is the innovation director, and it's underneath her, and I think it's just called the SBIR Matching Grant. I'm one of the reviewers to approve those, because I'm on the Rhode Island Science and Technology Advisory Council, and I'll tell you, it's well used. We get up to, I think, $2 million a year to be able to match out to folks.
The real neat thing about the SBIR program, unlike traditional contracts, if you have an idea, you can actually approach the government and talk that idea and get them to publish that topic. It's really an interesting process, but it's really about getting innovation in. And so once the topic is published, a lot of people can propose, including you. So it's a very interesting program that if you're innovative in any way or have some ideas, you can actually talk to the government about it and they will publish a topic based on it.
And there are multiple awards. If you bid on a topic and 30 companies bid on it, they might award 10 or 20 phase ones, actually. And let 10 or 20 companies all come up with their own way of doing it and solving the problem. But then when it comes to a phase 2, they'll usually pick 1 or 2, maybe 3 companies to actually go prototype it. So, sir?
So a lot of innovation is driven by having a really diverse workforce, and I'm thrilled that Councilmember Collins is here. If you were having conversations with Newport school principals, members of the school committee, the superintendent, parents, what would you be telling them they could be doing better in order to have a more diverse workforce that flows from Newport? In my FOIA to your organization 2 years ago, your human resource department said only 6% of your workforce comes from Newport. Okay, fine. But only 25% comes from Newport County. The rest is elsewhere. So, you know, as you're working new spaces like cyber, which I understand very well from my IBM federal stuff, way back, the cyber realm is interested in hiring a lot more females, people who aren't Caucasian white. So again, what sort of advice would you have for these elected officials, non-elected officials that are leading this workforce that's going to be stepping forward over the next 20 to 30 years?
I can start if you want. So as the contractor industry, we have a little bit more constraint than the government. So when we bid on a contract, there are these things called PQSs, personnel qualification sheets. PQSs say you must have a bachelor's or a master's from this type of accredited college with this type of studies. And quite often the programs at Salve or CCRI or Roger Williams just don't cut it. So URI, UConn, UMass, Dartmouth, yes, they usually answer the mail. So we have to bid people that meet very specific qualifications. And now that in the cyber world, those cyber quals that are coming out of other places, those are available. Administrative people, financial people, we don't have quite the constraints. But when it comes to the vast majority of our workforce, electrical, mechanical, software engineers, the credentials are usually not from Aquidneck Island. No offense. But.
And I'll just add something to that, and that we're kind of facing changes in the education system. There's a lot of multidisciplinary degrees that we actually don't know how to classify. And they might have flavors of cyber, and it might be mixed in with some type of physics, or quantum, and so some things you just say, okay, well, if it's quantum classified as physics, close enough and go. Some things, though, are becoming, they're not traditional curriculum. And so OPM, Office of Personnel Management, which does the classifications. This happened, by the way, 40 years ago and 30 years ago with computer scientists. There was no way to classify computer scientists. They had to write that specification of what that makes, because it could have been a mathematician, could have been an electrical engineer, could have been a programmer, things like that. So there were a lot of things that went in, and we're starting to see that. We're starting to see robotics. That's cross-disciplinary. It's being brought in from a lot of different places. Autonomy, kind of the same way. With due respect to Jason, what we did years ago in signal processing is actually the fundamentals of AI today. So to be honest with you, a a lot of things that were done with convolutional neural nets and all these different things that they're using now were evolved from the very challenging signal processing things that we were working on 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, and up till today. So, great question. One of the best pieces of advice is to get involved, understand what the problems are, and then let people then we have to find ways of educating that are actually, there was a statistic, Sally Sutherland, who Jason brought up, talked about at some point, women stopped going into computer science or computer engineering, I can't remember which, and it was, you scratch your head, and it's the geek factor. It literally was the geek factor that kind of, gave women a little bit of like, oh, that's not really where I want to be. And yet, there's so many cool things that you can do. So how do you attract people and give them that?
This is a fill in the blank here, and I need your help. I need you guys, so it's not a question, it's a statement. In 2017, I worked with some kids at Thompson in 6th grade. Movie Figures had just come out.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, because Mike and I have been Steve advocates for 20 years. We've been trying to get the locals to buy it. So I worked with Andy, and we, on a shoestring, bought a bunch of books, a young adult version of the Hidden Figure story. We got 7 new engineers and mathematicians, females, to come, and got them paid. We did 7 weeks, once a week, 1 hour, sat with kids of low reading ability. So these were 6th graders that were reading at a 2nd and 3rd grade level. And it was magic. It really worked out great. There was an article, they nominated for some Navy prize. It was really great. But what happened was, and this fits in with what Mike said, they got the teachers that know support, the administration could care less. We were a hindrance to them, and it sort of threw off their scheduling for the week. And it never happened again. Even though Candy gave me money, and I got money from South, I got all this money, and we had money, but we didn't have the support because the industry hasn't gotten through that barrier of the education leadership to say, we need to partner with you, principal at Pell. We need to partner with you because, as you say, you're producing kids that are just not ready for the big leagues.
Well, in my comments earlier about those PQSs didn't address the trades, so the trades are different. That's obviously, there's tons of jobs that don't need those.
And CCRI, the $1 million, what's it called, cyber range, so you're in the top 10 in the country for that equipment. The kids I talk to, they don't know. They live next door to CCRI, but they don't know what goes on inside. So there's a disconnect, and I would love to get more people. Candy's only one woman, and she does her best, but I'm also on the board of the United Dartmouth Hazard Center, where New Bedford and Fall River, they are into it. Candy loves working with them because there's an interface there.
Well,
There's an ecosystem.
and here's a problem. I'm on the board with Candy, Admiral Mike Connor, a bunch of other industry folks. We're on the URI Yukon STEM board. So what we do is try to get the URI Yukon kids excited about STEM careers working for the Navy. But it's not happening here. I hear exactly what you're saying. I think that's the type of thing we're talking about.
Tourism starts early here.
Talked to Dean Bontempi at the Graduate School of Ocean Ocean. She's very interested in doing the same thing in her discipline, Ocean Ocean. She's just started a place. And how do we get young kids all over the ocean and to stay and they lose it? Examples like
There's
this.
need more outreach, and I'm working with Jen and we just need more. We need more. And like Massachusetts has it figured out, and in 1993 when they changed their whole educational system, this is industry driven.
Yeah.
This is industry driven. So we need that in Rhode Island too. And you guys are the big shots. You got the big bucks up on the.
He does know.
We need more Candies to help us.
Yeah.
Get in
Candy is awesome. She's got a small team there, and it's what we have that funding for. I don't have it funding to pay 1,000 teams.
We also had the business leaders to step forward. We need admirals.
You need the vision.
Was in the community, having these conversations with the council members. And very few council members, even our former Newport mayor herself,
there's a real disconnect. So anyway, that's just my little.
Yeah, and getting the young kids excited about the technology or the jobs. I know they've had robot, come over and operate a robot in a tank and do just things like that are helpful.
High school kids right now that are doing that program that's been going on. We have 20 last week that's been going on for a
The
decade.
underwater robotics.
Yeah.
My son did that when he was in the 5th grade. He's at the Naval Academy now, so it resonated.
But you know,
But we need more of that.
but you know,
Yeah, I can hire scientists for 70% of our workforce.
Who would we talk to in the government? Who would be the person? It's cutting off your nose just like.
I mean, Jack Reed is supportive, but he's up at the federal layer. There's a gigantic
There's got to be
capacity
something
layer.
there, the education layer.
Our local state senator works for one of your big contractors, but he rarely ever talks about it.
I would love to have a bigger pool, a more diverse pool to hire.
Yeah, I know. If you're going to Puerto Rico and North Carolina and this.
Oh, we also want kids that are interested in that.
Because they're accredited engineers. I think all accredited engineers.
Yeah, we have a problem like
but
this.
it really is a grassroots problem. And, you know, Jason mentioned the program he's got going on now. When I was in the Division Newport role as well, I went up there, and I'll break your heart. I mean, there was a young lady there that was just spectacular. She was really well suited. And I said, so you're going to go on to engineering? She said to me, no, I was told I couldn't be an engineer. I said, who the hell told you that? I mean, this is a grassroots problem. This is about uplifting, rising tides. This is what this is about.
And I think the figures program should be in it, should be there, but
There's a lot of young kids.
teachers and the admin and the school committee, they just do not see the value.
That's where you have to start.
Well,
I know you're here.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
Say again?
Around talent, attraction, and retention, how hard is it to hire and get someone to move to the safe area?
We haven't found a problem with that. Most people that are attracted to us from out of state are eager to come here. We pay moving expenses. Most people we hire are local, but generally we have never encountered that as an issue. About 2 years ago, we got to a size where we hired a full-time recruiter to address those issues. We used to kind of rely on online systems to hire, but now we haven't.
Is it cost of living, quality of schools, things like that, those would come up?
No, we have guidance on we have a pay grade system, and we have salaries that are commensurate with the local cost of living, so we haven't encountered any problems like that. The bigger problem is the supply of software engineers in the country. So that's the most difficult one to fill, and a byproduct of COVID has been so many of them got comfortable coding in their pajamas at home that they don't want to come back to the office, so that's a whole different conversation for another day. But and they want big money to stay in their pajamas, and you got to come teach the young guy how to do the coding.
The economy we lose out because our salaries are capped at certain levels, and especially on the high end levels, those kind of disciplines.
Yeah.
I'll be at a college fair, and to just walk by. So it's hard.
You know, it's an interesting question too, because there's another side to that. And it's another service that, as Dave was talking about, it kind of came to mind. I'm glad you brought that up because we triggered the thought. So we have a very experienced workforce, and the demographic a while ago was really, really high. I think the average age for 60% of the Newport demographic, which was the same for all our workforce centers, was 60% was 50 or older. One of the really interesting things, though, is oftentimes, like when Jason was talking about, contracting out, expanding, surging your workforce, you rely on contractors. Well, some of our experienced people are retired. Well, they can be brought back, and they oftentimes are. And in fact, I'll tell you, when I was in New Hampshire, I was actually trained by two contractors who were retired Navy captains, and they trained me on so much stuff. Part of all the other people that mentored me, but that's another, the liquidity of our workforce. Like people we might hire someone on contract because, hey, we have a program and there's some inherently governmental things. There's a person person that's really good, they're experienced, great. So it flows both ways, but the ability to retain those SMEs, those subject matter experts, with 40 years of experience in analysis, you're not replacing 40 years of experience with 40 people with 1 year. Not happening. So a company like Seaport may pick them up, and now they become available to us to continue to make progress. So there's another element of that.
Yeah,
It's a sort of road. Yes.
Well, thank you all so much, Molly.
Thank you.